Look at that baby strut his stuff. I'd say he's a male.
So we are out here in the yard, the chicken yard, and we're going to show you the garden.
Let's go.
So the theme of today's video is going to be don't give up. Got a broke wrist. And we keep getting droughts followed by flood. And this is the result of it. But we're still getting a harvest. So let me turn the camera around. Y'all come with us on our journey. Yep. Y'all, this is my garden. This is the chicken yard garden. So floods, of course, deposits the seeds from everywhere when the flow of the water goes across the garden. And this is what happens when you can't pull the weeds because you got a broke wrist and it slows you down. Yeah, it is. So I have this nice little brace that I have to wear. I can still use my fingers, but I can't really do a lot of tugging because it pulls on the bones in that wrist and it hurts. So yeah, that's where we are. So the okra though is still producing. We just got a little harvest off of here, the first harvest of this field. This area over here probably doesn't get as much sun as a lot of the places do. So this garden on this end is a little slower than the rest of the produce. But guys, this is a row of tomatoes. They haven't been staked or anything. We have tomatoes all through there. It's going to be fun picking them, but we have tomatoes. We have beans. Now these are supposed to be black beans to dry and put up. And as you can see, they're making. So I am quite happy. We had storm damage. And that little section of corn right there has not stood back up. So I will probably have to pull all that out by hand somehow. May have to get some help to do that one. But there's beans up under there still that need that sunlight. So we've got to get that took care of soon. All right, and our corn. This is the decorative style of Indian corn. I don't know what type it is. It's a little cob of corn that we bought at a farm store somewhere and came home and planted the kernels just to see what it does. And guys, it's tossling. It's starting to put on ears. Let me show you this. I have one ear at least out of all of this. So if I get one ear, that's good, you know. This was a trial anyway. So I'm just kind of pleased that it's doing something. I'm not happy about it being on the ground, but and guys, we put basil everywhere. So there's another basil. There's marigolds. We've got flowers pretty much at the front of every row and the other end as well, just to make it pretty, to help with pests and all that stuff. We are still harvesting beans. And y'all, yes, I'm standing on a bucket to reach the tops. But it's okay. It's solid ground right there. So it's working. We have squash that we have picked. I've already picked today's. We have powdery mildew started though, which means I've got to get in here and cut all these leaves out that have it. And the crop will pretty much be done in not much longer because, you know, we're here in the hot, humid south and it's been hot and it's been humid. So powdery mildew is inevitable. Next rows, y'all remember those 4 rows of sweet potatoes? Yeah. You can tell where my weeding ended. Yep, right there, the weeding ended. I still will come through and pull weeds, especially the tall stuff. But the sweet potatoes, they grow underground. As long as the leaves can get some sunlight, it's not going to affect them. And as you can see, there's a lot of leaves through there, so I think we'll still have a good sweet potato harvest. Peppers. Yeah, I remember we came back and bought more peppers after the dog tromped ours to death. I did a little bit of work in here today. I can't do a lot of work because it hurts, and by the end of the day, my wrist is throbbing. But as you can see, I've got a little bit more work to do right there. That's a little bad section. But for the most part, the rest of the garden is not quite as bad, but you can at least see what you're doing and where you're going, okay? Now, I've picked all the beans for today, so you shouldn't see any beans on there, and if you do, it's because they're so high I can't pick them. But there's still another row of beans there with more basil. And like I said, flowers at the start of every row. And we've got a tomato on this one. Yep. This is white scallop squash. And as you can see, it's taking over, but it's also getting the powdery mildew. So I'll cut the affected leaves out in the next day or two, and hopefully it will restart and grow again. Something I'm really proud of, we grew noodle beans last year, but they didn't grow as well. This year I said, why not trellis them on the tomato trellises, and they are doing well. So we've got noodle beans growing. One side, this side over here, is green noodle beans. They're not doing as well, but the red noodle beans are doing awesome. We've already got a second harvest on those, and just a little bit at a time. And I missed a tomato. I'm going to go ahead and pick that before the chickens get out here and destroy it. So we have had some losses of our tomatoes, as you can see. You know, when it gets to be this time of year in the hot, humid South, it's inevitable that you end up with some crop failures along the way. Guys, we still have peanuts coming up. These are volunteers from a couple years ago. And the tomatillas are doing good. I still don't know how to harvest them. One day I will look that up. If y'all know anything about it, y'all put it in the comments for me. Save me some work so I don't have to go look it up. But as you can see, we still have weeds everywhere. These are not as bad because they didn't get out of hand as bad to start with, but it is still weedy. All right, this is our first crop of squash and zucchini that was growing up under these beans. And guys, this set of beans is about done. So in the next week or so, we will be taking out this set of beans and replanting them. I don't know if we're gonna burn the vines or not yet. We're going to do something because we do have bean beetles all in this. Again, this is the South, and we're not really organic because organics is still chemicals that kill the bees and stuff, but they're natural chemicals. We're more of a hands-off, so I come through and kill the the bean beetles by hand, but there's just so many of them, you lose the battle eventually, okay? So again, with the marigolds and all that throughout there, there's some basil down in there and everything too. Just thought I'd give you a garden update in the chicken yard and give you an update on our turkeys. So we keep having flooding, and we are down to, out of the last batch of meat birds, we're down to 3 meat birds at the moment. And we have 9 turkeys left, but the 4 guineas are still here. We have lost a couple of the chickens that are in there, but we are working on their pen and improving their pen as we go. Now this will become our greenhouse, a high tunnel later, but for now it is working pretty good for these turkeys and stuff. And they're in there killing all the grass for me, and I've been throwing in the grass from the garden and letting them have at it. So there's you. Some not so cute chicks anymore. But guys, the boys want to strut. Still trying to figure out which ones are boys and which ones are girls, but you can tell when they strut. Alright, stay tuned for more. Alright, this is garden number 1. This is the garden that is closest to the house. This is also the one that we put the weed barrier down on. So we've got our cucumbers. They are producing. In fact, we keep missing a bunch, so they're turning yellow. I kind of messed up and added white scallop squash in between here, which is also common the trellis. But that's a mistake I made, so y'all make sure you don't do that. We have blooms on all these bush beans. They're doing very well. How's the weeds looking? Well, you know, for the most part, there's not a lot of weeds, and I just need to pull what few are in here. So if there's a hole, that's a spot a weed can come up through. For the most part, it is clean through here. I mean, this black plastic woven weed barrier stuff is awesome in that department. It also has withheld some of the moisture through some of the drought. This garden did the best. We went to hook up the irrigation system and we have not needed it. Because the black plastic has held moisture in very well. There was a place or two that I had to do a little bit of watering, especially like when I would plant something. But overall, this area has done well. We have tomatoes producing, even though they're not staked. So, yeah, that was the downside of planting over here, is we didn't think about how to stake the tomatoes through here. So we've just left them to lie on the ground. And we actually have one ripening right there. They are touching plastic instead of dirt, so they will be just fine laying on the ground. We also have golden wax beans that are blooming and hopefully will be producing. Now this part of the garden gets shade through the early morning. Thank goodness we have a garden that gets shade. This is a butter pea instead of a butter bean. It's a butter pea, and it's also a bush variety. Also, we didn't plant these 2 rows here. We just gave up at some point, dealing with the drought and all that stuff, and we just didn't plant these 2 rows. The basils are doing good. The acorn squash that we planted is not growing as fast as we had hoped. However, the peppers and the basil in this row, as you can see, are getting took over by the cantaloupes and the watermelons. I put slabs down on the edge of the black plastic, that way I could go around and mow. I didn't get as close as I wanted to still, but it's okay, you know, because the plastic is there, the seeds are not going to sprout. Now, let me show you a couple things. Right in there somewhere. Let's see. Yep, right there. You can see that cantaloupe right in that screen right there. Another one right down here. So the cantaloupes are producing. Let me show you what the watermelons are doing. We have watermelons as well. They're producing everywhere through here. I had to go through and pull them out of the grass and remove them to where I could mow the edge here. So there are several watermelons in here. They are just doing well. They needed a little more space than this area provided. So the watermelons and the cantaloupes are mingling together and spreading on over to take over the bell pepper row, and that's okay. But y'all, look how good this looks. And as you can see, there's no irrigation hooked up to it, despite the fact that we've had droughts and stuff. All right, so that's this update. Let's go ahead and go do the front garden. Now the front garden, we decided to remove the black plastic just so we could get it done faster. The front garden is not thriving, and with me and a broke wrist this year, it's okay. We have sort of given up on a lot of this stuff this year because I have a broke wrist, and so it's hard to harvest it and preserve it and keep everything going as well. Spaghetti squash is growing well amongst the bell peppers. This was a boo-boo on my side. I went in and planted the spaghetti squash and then forgot where I planted the spaghetti squash and planted the peppers on top of it. Yep. And we have more tomatoes, y'all. I'm sick of seeing tomatoes. I really am. But we have more tomatoes planted out here. And we have another type of squash. This may be acorn squash. It may be the other one is acorn and this is spaghetti. I've got it wrote down, I just don't remember. And we have more tomatoes. And then we have jalapeno peppers here. And there's a row of bell peppers amongst the squash, and the next row is banana peppers. So this out here is doing well for what it is. This area did not get planted. We're going to come back with another set of peas here, like a late planting. And then up here we have I think it's a zipper pea, I can't remember. But it come up very spotty because of all the flooding and everything that has gone on here as well. As you can see, all this floods out. So the seeds start up there and then wash right on out the bed and into the lawn or ponds, depending on how bad the rain was. So this is the garden I call garden number 2. It's the front yard garden. So there's your update. This is only some of the purple hulls that we have harvested. We have 2 more 5-gallon buckets out in the pavilion. We also have more still in the field. Picked this many green beans yesterday. Yep, 5-gallon buckets worth. Guys, don't pay attention to my kitchen because broke wrist. It's a little hard at the moment. We're still harvesting squash. We're still harvesting tomatoes. We'll start harvesting noodle beans, scallop squash. We harvested this many cucumbers yesterday. We have several varieties of cucumbers planted. We've got lemon cucumber, we've got a market more, we've got burpless, and we've got a pickling cucumber. I don't remember which ones are which, other than the lemon cucumber. I know that one. And the pickling cucumber also looks different, but I can't tell the difference between the market more and the burpless. We got scallop squash in here as well, but this basket is mostly cucumbers. Okay, so we are getting harvests. We're still canning, we're still putting stuff up. Let me show you another bucket. We're still bringing in tomatoes. We're still bringing in okra. So we're getting the harvest and we're putting it up as much as we can. So y'all stay tuned and we'll show you some things that we do with the harvest and everything. But for now, let's go check out some of the other gardens that we haven't showed already. Yep, the theme of today's video, failures. Even though it's a failure, there is still a crop underneath all that. The morning glories are taking over. The weeds are taking over. The rain is not helping. But there are cantaloupes under there. Same for over here. This patch is kind of bad on this end, but it opens up and there are cantaloupes through here. Even though there's a ton of morning glories, there's cantaloupes. So yeah, it's pretty cool that despite nature, there's still a crop under there. So yeah. The morning glories are taking it over, but the cantaloupes and the watermelons are determined that they are going to produce. Why? Because they're an annual, and an annual's job is to produce. No matter what, it's going to produce something to where it can carry on for next year. All right, we're looking at the peas here. The peas are trying to produce another crop. Hopefully we will be able to harvest them before the deer get them. And the corn, guys. Y'all remember in the last video, the corn had blown down. Let me show you something. We were very, very surprised when we came out and most all the corn, even that was laying on the ground, most of the corn stood back up, guys. Now tell me, God ain't good. Because we picked some corn yesterday. This is Silver Queen, I think. I can't remember. I'm not good at the variety names of the corn. This one I think is Silver Queen, and it like I said, it has stood back up. This end up here is behind the other end, and it's probably because of the shade trees in the morning, because you know most things do better with morning sun than they do with evening sun. But let me show you. Look here. There's an ear ready to harvest. Right over there is another ear ready to harvest. So there is a good harvest still out here. So yeah, the corn is doing well, even though nature tried to blow it down. We harvested some. It's in the fridge ready to put up. We're gonna try and make some cream corn. I've never done it before, so I gotta do a little research and see if I know how. But we're gonna start with probably a video on making corn and stuff, and canning some squash maybe too. But y'all, this is garden number 4. This is the one that is outside the chicken yard, behind the green block house or the pink house. Alright, so as y'all can see, corn is tasseling, corn is producing. The sorghum right there in front of it, or high gear, as a lot of people call it, is doing well also. Let me zoom in. So there's the corn, and that in the lower part there is the sorghum. So we will be doing that for feed this year. That is not a sugar sorghum, it's a grain sorghum. So we'll be doing that for feed for the chickens and stuff through the year, for the turkeys, and we will be getting back into quail. As y'all can see, all of this is our watermelons, and they're producing quite nicely out through there. Let me show you a couple of spots. We've got blooms all through here. You can see the watermelon very nicely through here. But yes, there's a row of peas, which that's what that is. That's peas. And then another row of peas. And another row of peas. That's going to be fun to pick in here. So there is watermelon, row of peas, watermelon, row of peas, watermelon. That's kind of like the pattern all through. And then there, of course, is, you know, random stuff that just pops up out of nowhere. And then I think the cantaloupe is in this section. I am not really remembering well. This is Mark's area. He knows what's planted and where. It might be pumpkins out there. I can't remember. But I do know that we have all that section right up there as well. So walking over to it now, and as you can see, this is a lot of morning glories. Yeah. We dislike morning glories. They sure are pretty, and this little morning glory, when I first saw it, was beautiful. I had never seen this morning glory before. But guys, that morning glory is awful. Awful. Not to mention, one of my favorite herbal plants is out here and growing wild and making a mess as well. We have Passionflower all through the field out here. And when I say all through the field, I mean it's taking over as bad as the morning glory. So yeah, I'm not exactly happy about that. Because that's a plant that I want to grow and cultivate. But if it is that invasive, I might have a problem with growing it. We weeded the okra rows. There is no weeds at all through the okra now. And I have been working on pulling the morning glories and stuff out of the peas. And I've been ripping out passion flowers as well. So, all right, let's start at the front of this garden. Looky there. All my sunflowers are blooming, despite the fact that the tallest one is probably hip high. I mean, they're blooming all the way down. And the tallest one is hip high. Now, these are the same ones that I have planted in the past that are taller than I am. So this is just a bad year, okay? We have peaches and cream corn up next that is not doing well. It just, between the droughts and the floods, the ears are tiny, the crop didn't get very tall. I mean, the tassels are at the top of my shoulder. And there's not, the ears are not filled out very well, although I'm sitting here looking at one that looks like a pretty good ear. It's just not ready to harvest yet. And this is the patch that came up spotty to begin with, so it's coming in at different dates as well, which is good and bad, because, you know, when you're trying to sell a crop, you want as much of it to come in as you can at one time to sell it, because there's minimums when you sell big quantities. And we are peacemaking out here, meaning it's a dozen here and a dozen there, so it's not working out the way we wanted it to. But let me show you something else that is working out. Look here. So Mark came in and planted pumpkins amongst the corn. And we have a pumpkin trying to turn. So that's a good thing. All right, let me step over our rope, because if you remember correctly, there is bone sauce on the rope to try to save the crop from the deer. All right, I'm not going to walk all out there like Sister is, and Sister really doesn't need to be, because she's going to be tearing up the pumpkin vines that are all through there. So we're going to take this outside edge. We're going to watch where we step, because there's still pumpkins out here. And we're also watching for snakes. But we have peas. Now this one is being took over by the morning glories. I have not pulled the things out of it yet. This one is doing a little better, as you can see. And this one's not doing horrible either. Or this one either. Now this one and the next two rows, there is not a morning glory one, but also they're a little thinner sparsed for some reason. It's probably the dirt and everything, who knows. But also right beside us, we have our okra plants. Now, I harvested a 5-gallon bucket full almost the other day, and we grow burgundy. What do I like about burgundy? I can grow a bigger pod. That pod is still soft. And I don't have to harvest it every single day like you do with Clemson Spineless or some of the other varieties that have to be harvested short. These peas are putting on new pods, so they are doing extremely well. Even though the deer have got in here and ate some, they're doing extremely well considering. And I probably have another 5-gallon bucket worth of okra to pick out here. I mean, look at this. So, and I'm seeing that all through here. So this is the big field, guys. You know, this is the part that I stay in mostly. But when all that starts coming in, we'll be slipping back that way. That is where the pumpkins, the watermelon, the cantaloupe, all the viney stuff is this way. Let me get through here. So as you can see, we're walking through the morning glories again, and you can see where I have been pulling morning glories. This is pumpkins through here. Okay, but there's also watermelon, and there's peas. Look at that pumpkin there, guys. That thing is huge. That's a pumpkin. So yeah, we've got a lot of pumpkins and stuff out here. The pumpkins are subject to the powdery mildew, which we have a few plants that have gotten it and are, you know, fighting it. But for the most part, we're doing pretty good out here. Yeah. But here is our big problem. Come hunting season, we're going to have a field day, I hope. because we have so many deer. All right, guys, if you like what we're doing, make sure you leave us a comment. Make sure you like our videos. Make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell to where you know when new videos come out. We are doing the best we can with this broken wrist. The road rash has cleared up, thankfully. So that's not holding me back now, and I can get back to doing hands and knees and all that. I just can't put weight really on the wrist or bend the wrist in certain ways, and tugging on it pulls it in those certain ways. So yeah, we're doing the best we can. So failure happens, and failure is often not a complete total failure. But it's a learning process. So keep that in mind. You learn something from it, and you still can get the fruits of your labor, even though you feel like it has failed. It has not really fully failed. So till next time, guys, see y'all later. This is Becca from Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead. Bye.